I'm a little bit torn on this one. I mean, I understand what their defense is. They're saying that NBA players can be super carriers and can infect a lot of people around a lot of different areas. But then so can any regular old American. So why is it that NBA players can be tested willy-nilly whether they're showing symptoms or not, but some places regular Americans are not able to get tests because there aren't enough tests? Visually, I mean, I understand their defense, but visually it looks like there's one rule for the elites and one rule for everybody else. Let's read this. Why NBA players can get coronavirus tests, but regular Americans are struggling to. Because of a widespread testing shortage, Americans across the country with symptoms of the novel virus have struggled to get tested. Yet on Tuesday, the NBA's Brooklyn announced tests that 4 of its players had tested positive for the virus, including 3 who had no symptoms at all. They were asymptomatic. They didn't have symptoms, but they were carriers. Last week, the NBA tested the entire Utah Jazz team after center Rudy Gobert tested positive, and another team that had recently played the Jazz also tested its entire traveling party. But it's a big contrast to what every other American is seeing. The contrast between regular Americans struggling to get tested and the NBA's capacity to test entire teams, regardless of symptoms, set of a mix of frustration and resentment towards the elite, because encapsulated in a tweet from New York City Mayor de Blasio. We wish them a speedy recovery, de Blasio tweeted, but with all due respect, an entire NBA team should not get tested for COVID-19 while there are critically ill patients waiting to be tested. Tests should not be for the wealthy, but for the sick. They should be for everybody. Everybody's wrong in this one. The tests should be for everybody. But you got to admit, looking at it on the outside looking in, it looks visually like, wow, so what? Because they're rich and famous, they can get tested, but regular Americans can't? Well, that doesn't sound very American. That doesn't sound very human. That doesn't sound very nice. Public health officials don't agree with the mayor's assessment, according to the NBA spokesman Mike Bass. This is where they give their defense. Public health authorities and team doctors have been concerned that given NBA players' direct contact with each other, okay, lots of Americans have direct contact with other Americans, and close interactions with the general public, okay, we are the general public, and that's who we interact with, is the general public. In addition to their frequent travel, lots of Americans frequently travel, not necessarily maybe across state and national lines, but even just going from here to your store, you encounter a lot of people. I mean, you're traveling. They could accelerate the speed of the virus, Bass said. But everything that the NBA players can cover, the regular American really covers too. I mean, I understand what they're saying. I get the idea that they could be super carriers by the sheer amount of travel and people that they come in contact with. But, okay, everybody has lots of contact. I don't know. I'm torn, okay? And I'm asking you guys for a little direction because I don't know which way to think on this one. Following 2 players testing positive last week, others were tested and 5 additional players tested positive. Hopefully by these players choosing to make their test results public, they have drawn attention to the crucial need for young people to follow CDC recommendations in order to protect others, particularly those with underlying health conditions and the elderly. It won't happen. The only way it'll happen is if a nice, fit, young, healthy NBA player dies of COVID-19, then the youth will wake up. Because online, what I'm hearing from the youth is they're giddy with excitement on one end and blasé, like ho-hum, it's not going to affect me on the other end. You know, I mean, they don't act like this with the cold or the flu. This is nothing, I don't know, because it's the new kid on the block. You can get clicks and views for it, I guess. You know, have the unpopular opinion of, yeah, I'm going to drink a bottle of COVID-19 and get clicks and views on it. I don't know. The mentality today. In other words, part of the impetus for testing NBA players is that they could become super spreaders who unknowingly infect many other people. Now let's get testing shortages for Americans. The scarcity of corona testing in the U.S. has been readily apparent for the past few weeks. Many Americans suffering symptoms associated with what's officially known as COVID-19 said they are angry and frustrated after trying to get tested only to be turned away, as CNN reported last week. Yeah, a lot of people have been turned away even if they show symptoms because they're short on tests. They tell them, well, go home, self-isolate, we'll let you know when we have tests available. Isn't that crazy? No, we don't have enough test kits, and neither does any other state. And no, the federal government does not have an answer, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan said Tuesday. We are behind, and that's going to continue to be a problem that we're all trying to address. While U.S. health officials say testing is ramping up, and while drive-through testing, yes, I've seen a couple drive-through test sites here, the lines are insane. I'm not waiting for 4.5 fucking hours. In several states is rolling out, a shortage of available testing remains an issue, CNN has found. Given the overall shortage, coronavirus tests in the U.S. are being given to those who reach certain criteria. Criteria? What certain criteria? An NBA player and rich and famous meets your criteria, evidently, including people who have been exposed to someone who is already tested positive. That too helps explain how the NBA players exposed to Gobert were able to get tests. Yeah, but, I mean, all of them, I mean, if tests are in short supply, I don't know. I'm torn on this one. I understand the other side. Maybe it's a damned if you do and you damned if you don't situation. It just, visually, it's like, well, god dang, you tested entire teams. And other people who, I don't know, man. I don't know. And, not to mention, all health officials have said that we should assume that we're all infected. So then doesn't that mean that we should all assume we've come in contact with someone who's infected so we all meet that criteria? Which freaking way am I supposed to think on this? World, internet, YouTube, America, UK, Ireland, England. I got a few Ireland. Yeah. Hey, how am I supposed to think? What am I supposed to look at right now? Right now, and we're going to skip down to here, which is now up here. Right now, we are playing catch-up and testing people who are very sick, he said. We need to make testing available so that we get the frontier of the cases, so that the moment someone develops symptoms, we test and quarantine them. That's how you nip an epidemic in the bud. Amid this shortage, the NBA has conducted testing of several teams in the wake of Gobert's positive results, and it has had the support of officials and medical experts the entire way. I don't know, man. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel it. It just kind of seems like the ivory tower taking care of the ivory tower on the outside looking in, you know what I mean? But how am I supposed to feel? I don't know. I hate how they do this on the titles, but what are your opinions? What am I supposed to think? What are we supposed to think, period? I don't know, man. I don't know. There are no answers. There are no good answers. Anyway, I'm done fucking with that. I love you guys. I'll see you on the next one.